Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for joining today's webcast. Oxford Networks turns the cloud into a sustainable business model in just 18 months with IBM Hybrid Cloud Solutions. I'm Robin Ray, your Tivoli User Community Group Manager. As part of your community management team, I would like to encourage you to visit the community following this webcast to download this and previous presentations given to our member community. In this session, learn how Oxford Networks leveraged IBM Cloud Orchestrator and IBM Performance Management to get their IS offering running efficiently and grew their data center and MSP business by 480%. Today's presenters are Alan Marblestone, Director of Product Management at Oxford Networks, LLC, and Payela Chakravarti, IBM Senior Product Manager, Applications Performance Management. Before we get started today, I just wanted to cover a few administrative details. All the phone lines are in listen-only mode. You can ask a question at any time using our chat tool. If your chat question is not answered during the presentation, we will address the questions at the end. Today's session is being recorded, and you will be provided with a copy of materials following today's call. And with that, I'll turn the presentation over to Alan. Alan, take it away.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you for the introduction. I'm Alan Marblestone, the Director of Product Management with Oxford Networks, based in Lewiston, Maine. And we're going to talk today about building the business for the MSP and how we were able to do that using these tools. I'm just going to shift forward. Payel, were you going to talk about this slide, or would you like me to do this and jump right through?
Yeah, sure, no problem, Alan. I can go through it. So, just to level set, as a managed service provider, if you're deploying a cloud environment, reliability, scalability, flexibility, all of these are critical to the success of the deployment, right? So what, Oxford Network was going through a couple of years back is, adapting to this rapid growth and adapting to the changing environment, everybody moving to the cloud, data analytics coming into the picture. There's all these changes of social, mobile, cloud, and data happening, big data happening at the same time. So adapting to the rapid growth and the demands of their consumers without compromising the efficiency was critical for them to get their IaaS offering running. So in order to do that, they needed tools that can provision and deploy environments quickly on the cloud, as well as troubleshoot and fix problems really fast. So in this presentation, Alan will talk about some of the IBM products that they utilized, like the Smart Cloud, IBM Smart Cloud portfolio of monitoring, Smart Cloud Orchestrator, and then Netcool Omnibus to get their IaaS offering running efficiently. And they were able to do this in 18 months, and they grew their data center and MSP business by 480%. So it's pretty impressive. And what Alan will talk about today is, what were the steps they took, how did it benefit them, what were some of the lessons learned, best practices, and then going forward, what are the things they're looking for. Back to you, Alan.
Thank you, Payel. So just for the next slide, just the brief agenda. We'll talk about the space itself for the managed service providers, how Oxford Networks is fitting into it, specifically with our managed service business. We have some other business segments as well, but we're going to stay focused today on the managed services in the data center. The business problems that we were encountering, and then really try to tell the story of our implementation, both the successes and the challenges we faced, and I think as important how we overcame some of those challenges, because they're a key piece in the story of the teamwork, as well as how the products ended up working. So the space itself, I like to look at the managed service provider space in two general segments in the data center. There's the owner-operator, and then there's the aggregator. Starting with the aggregator, that's really the consultant businesses that are selling to companies their experience and their knowledge, and they're pulling products together from the delivery organizations. So they don't necessarily run anything themselves, but they're piecing it together. Absolutely critically important, because a company just doesn't have the experience in the IT space, doesn't know how to do it and find those and put the right things together. And for us, we look to them as channel partners as another way to sell our products. We sit in the owner-operator space, so we own our data center, we operate our network, we own the equipment inside the data center, a much more capital-intensive business to get into. It fits well with our legacy as a telephone company because we own our telephone system and our switches, so it matches with what we do well in the heavy infrastructure, but that really is a big breakdown between the two. So in our case, the owner-operator, the software packages allow us to run those systems more efficiently. And an aggregator really isn't going to see the benefits of those except in the delivery of the products. Generalization versus specialization follows very similarly with the first point, in that you can either try to do a little bit of everything, inch deep, mile wide theory, or concentrate on one area. So for us, our specialization is infrastructure as a service. We are good at running big things and not good at getting inside of when a customer lacks the IT resources in their business and looks to us to not only provide the big systems but also the day-to-day management of the desktop, of their internal networks, of their application layer, and of their development. That's not something we do well, so we look to partners for those types of services. Customers are always pulling for more, so that's great when they find a provider that they like. Hopefully it's us. They like to buy more from us, and that creates the challenge, pulls us in to become more of a generalist because they're asking us to do more and more things, and then we look, again, to partners for that. The business decisions and IT drivers. So I have a comment in there about being very aware of this, beware, and playing house. And this really goes to the conversation that you're having with the customer and which person in the organization that you're talking to. So it really comes to the playing house shiny toy syndrome. When you're talking to the people that sometimes run the equipment, they really like having the nice new gadget or the thing in their IT closet. The problem with that is that doesn't create any value for the organization necessarily. It's what those things can do for the company. Unified communications tools, converged infrastructure, those provide systemic functionality that allows a business to do what they do well, do it better, do it more efficiently, be more profitable. Having things does not necessarily translate to that. It's what those can do for you. This is where we work in the MSP space to try to educate our customers that owning and having equipment is what we do. What they need is the result of those things. Really, you can look at it no different than a car for transportation. It doesn't matter if you have a really, really nice car or just a functional car. The key is that it gets you from a place to another place. And then our business problem is an MSP. So, we're providing the service like I just talked about. So making sure that we have uptime, that we can scale effectively and we can manage it, that is the problem that we need to solve to make sure we're giving our customers what they need, which is they need the services that they are purchasing. They need them all the time, and they need them operating efficiently. So I started to talk a little bit about partnerships. A key piece for us is the partnerships with the software vendors, because we are not going to be involved in the application layer. So if you look at the pyramid on the side, the infrastructure and the platform, that is our sweet spot. That's where we know how to operate efficiently. That's where the smart cloud tools have helped us be able to run that platform more efficiently. And we look to software vendors to provide the software services that the customer needs, as well as the support for that, because we just cannot get involved in that level. As an example, we find that the developers of the software products or those that can deliver types of services like that generally have between 40 and 70 people focused on managing and operating that. When I look at our business, that's what we're using to run our network and our telephone systems. So to continue to layer for every different type of application that a customer needs, those people on top of it becomes very inefficient. It goes against the scale we were talking about on the previous slide. So by partnering, we're able to deliver those to the customers. We find good partners that allow us to focus on what we do. It allows the vendor to focus on the software as a service. They don't need to find platforms to run their service on because they can do it on ours, and we don't have to have the people who can do the coding because we rely on the partner to do it. It manages the risk across the businesses, and it allows us to put together some great partnerships that give our customers the services they need. So our business problem, we need to give 100% availability to our customers of our cloud and our network. 5 nines is the SLA, but really we want to have it running all the time. And that's really the focus of all of these things we're going to talk about is how do we get there. We're challenged by resources. We're a new deployment of a new business unit, so we've been running now for just over 2 years, and that's why you see the large business growth that Payal talked about in the beginning, because we came from literally pre-revenue startup status into where we are today. Our customers are challenged by getting into the cloud in a seamless and integrated transition. Because you're in the cloud doesn't mean hardware doesn't exist. It just means the hardware is shared and is operated by the cloud provider. Not everything runs in that environment, so there is still some hardware requirements that the customer needs to have. They obviously need an access portal, so no matter what, they're going to have some type of interface device, laptop, thin client, PC, as well as all the portability devices. So we need to make that transition somewhat seamless. No different than we also see in the telephone business going from a regular physical PBX at a customer site into a cloud PBX. It is exactly the same transitions. Customers want to have visibility, and this is an interesting one. So as you look at the top of the slide, 100% availability of the resources. So if the resources are always available and the cloud provider is managing the fact that it has that availability, it makes me ask myself as a product manager, then why do they need to have the visibility? The answer goes to just our nature. We want to be able to see that it is operating. IT managers still want to be able to know what the resource consumption is. The reality is it's a little less important because if the cloud operator is doing what they should, the owner-operator is managing those systems, really all the customer would need to see in practicality is resource consumption so they can better balance it themselves. But that single pane of glass is absolutely critical. It really is a marketing piece as opposed to an operational piece, but we found it to be a vitally important piece, I dare say critical, because if we can't offer the customers that visibility, even though we promise the uptime, they still want to see that. So it's one of those things that we promise we're going to give it to you, and we actually have to show it to you every day. That is one of the solutions that we were able to get through with this set of systems. So to talk about just briefly about our network, because this goes into some of our challenges, I won't read through the stats, but you can see them there. On the right side of the screen shows the network that we own, operate ourselves 100%, and then we have several network-to-network interface points throughout New England that bring us out to circuits throughout the country. We have a few examples here, but we operate well over 650 third-party circuits throughout the country. So that's a complex management structure, specifically because of the customer access lines merging with our aggregation points, the devices, as well as breaking out the business versus residential, because they have significantly different requirements. We run all the way from in the middle of the screen, you can see the little white area. That's our ILEC, our federally regulated telephone system, as well as the rest of the high-speed fiber network. So each one has individual demands that are very different. So then we'll talk about now how we have implemented the Smart Cloud products. You can see the list there: Smart Cloud Monitoring, IBM Smart Cloud Provisioning, the Tivoli Usage Accounting Manager, and the IBM NetCool Suite. When we started this, we had a lab services assistants with us specifically to develop and execute the statement of work, and I highlight there on a very restricted budget. These implementations are extremely complex by nature, and they can be very, very expensive. What we needed to do and what we wanted to do was well beyond the budget that we had for that year. So what we had to do was work with lab services to identify the critical components that we couldn't do ourselves, as well as some great assistance on taking resources we had inside the company from skill sets, giving some training and allowing them to do some of the implementations, so we did a lot more internally than we had originally intended. The benefit of that is now we have people on board that have a deep understanding that they wouldn't have otherwise had, and lab services was a great assistance in helping us figure it out. They were on site for a week and a half to 2 weeks, as well as plenty of telephone and web follow-up to put it together. And what we really ended up with was for our IBM Power systems and the x86 cloud management servers, we were able to put a great network together. Okay, so the outcomes for us and what was critical, and you can see the diagram, lays out somewhat how our infrastructure sits together with the x86 and the power and the multi-tiered storage. But what we had to do was uptime without interruption. We had to make sure that we could give that to our customers, because otherwise we have no cloud business. So what are some key pieces of that? Advanced notifications and centralized management functionality. The advanced notifications so that before customer systems ran into problems, even if they were overdriving a provisioning because they maybe put too much work onto a resource, we needed to know about that before it caused a problem so that we could take corrective action and then work with the customer to make sure we had that critical piece uptime without interruption. And then the centralized management functionality, that goes to the scale that I talked about several slides ago. It allows us to do one set of clicks to provide many sets of actions. Workload decreased by over 35%. Now that's where we are today, and we have a modest-sized cloud offering. That percentage continues to climb as the scale goes higher, and we find that in all of our cloud products. So as it grows, the workload continues to decrease because you're able to do the one click to many actions. And then the 24/7 on the health of our cloud. Automated notifications when you integrate it with NetCool so that nobody has to be looking at the screens and that the right people get notified by the method that they need. Visibility into cloud infrastructure at the infrastructure level, so we're not looking at it at the customer's virtual machine. The customers see that. We're looking at it one layer below that at the health at the server level. We can monitor mixed environments, so if a customer has physical and virtual, like I talked about, some things don't work into our cloud and they're going to put it in colo or have it on their customer premise. In either case, it doesn't make a difference. We're able to see into that. And then the importance of trending and resource utilization. We have that, and that is, I think, a key piece for the customers because that's how they can really plan their growth. And even though they're growing in the cloud where they don't need to buy resources and they're much less critical when they make a decision because it's not a buying decision, it's an operational expense, not a capital expense, it still allows for them to plan more effectively how they're going to grow their expenses as their business grows. So here's some of the discussion about how it worked for us. The cross-platform monitoring and alerting was fantastic. It enabled us to put together that fused environment into the single pane of glass, absolutely critical in the scaling that we needed as a managed service provider, because when I talked about customers want you to do more and more for them, the problem would have been if we didn't have these solutions in place. We could offer the monitoring and the operations and the virtual, but if we couldn't mix with their physical environment that's located at the customer premise, or maybe they even had, because they didn't have it in our data center, that creates a tremendous problem because now they would have had to put in two solutions to provide that monitoring, and that just doesn't work for a customer. They want one contact point to be able to manage their systems, and also to be able to go across multiple hypervisors. Again, absolutely critical. Proactively determining problems before they become a problem. that's part of the uptime. We're able to look at those things that we otherwise would not have visibility into. The scale, I think I've talked enough about that. And then real-time visibility into the environment. We know when to make corrections because we are seeing it, and we get the alerts and the patterns. So those are the pieces that really work to help us, at the end of the day, provide what we need, which is uptime for the customer, and the customer feeling comfortable that that uptime is predictable because they can see it as well. So the next piece was the NetCool implementation, and this gave us the network as well as the monitoring. So I think an absolutely phenomenal list of devices that when you start adding that up and looking at all the different elements that can go into that, it was something that was monitored previously by several different types of systems that did not work together, so you had to individually, continuously check them, not unlike just looking at different meters in different places. In this case now, using Omnibus, Precision IP, Network Monitor, and Network Manager, it was a suite of products that are now fused into a single pane of glass, and it works to avoid outages. The story I like to tell about this one I got from our Vice President of Network when he put this together, and we talked through what the benefits were. And the story I'll use is about a router in one of our faraway central offices that sits on our data center ring. So our fiber ring runs over 1,000 miles, and it's got routers and aggregation points throughout the state. So geographically, it's a long way to get to some of them. Previously, we would get, let's say, on one of the routers, a backup battery for it. When it got below a certain level, obviously it sets off an alarm that lets you know you have so much time until it goes away. And then obviously we'd have to immediately dispatch somebody out that way to go replace that. Today, we would get the insight that that battery has set your threshold, whatever you want it to be. Let's say we'll call it 1 week left of life in it. We would get that alarm. It would come through the single pane of glass, and now we can do a predictive and planned fix so that we never even run into the problem of that battery getting down to its lowest level. Not only that, it allows us to then decide what other activities does the maintenance crew need to perform when they're up in that area. So we didn't just send somebody on a 4-hour trip to do one maintenance task. Hopefully we've been able to fuse several tasks into that and get the most out of our maintenance time, thus operating more efficiently, ensuring we have uptime, and saving money. So the single pane of glass, it sounds like, it's a cliche, but it really is important. It's really the story I just told. We get the performance, we get the alerting. We're able to result in the high reliability, and we can take proactive management steps. I like to say it does sound easy, but getting there was a tremendously complex road, not without some difficulties. The result, we were able to make a sustainable business in 18 months, which is really exciting. We started with a data center that was about 1,200 square feet that we had built inside of an old Naval Air Station Command and Control Center. That was we finished that almost 3 years ago. It'll be 3 years ago this summer. And then last year we opened an additional 7,000 square feet of new data center. So in the span of about 2 years, we were able to take and fill the 1,200 square feet and have the need to build a data center that was 5 times larger than that. So very exciting and working hard on it. So here's what we learned. In the implementation, we learned a lot. The first step was a blind leap in that we knew we needed these tools, and we didn't fully understand what the planning and the resources we were going to need to put into it internally in order to make it successful. And a lot of that has to do with the fact that we were just a new team putting together a new business. We did NetCool second, and that went much better because we learned our lessons on the first time. So we're going back through the Smart Cloud and rebuilding the pieces that we didn't execute the way we needed to execute them We're starting with the requirements. We're looking at what is the business solution that our customer needs, and we're planning and implementing it within the resources that we know we have available inside the company, as opposed to what we did initially, which was just put it together and put everything we could towards it, but it was just too much capacity required for what we had for resources. But now we're much better matched because we learned how to walk through this on our second start with the NetCool. Internal resource management, it's not just our cloud team. It takes everybody. So we have network, engineering, the IT internal team, which is the one running corporate IT as opposed to the cloud, as well as our operations team to get everybody that needs to be a part of it, because it does touch the entire business, even down to all of the billing and finance folks. So our next steps in moving forward, expanding our NOC, we call it the TSC, our Technical Support Center. So initially, as we implemented, the cloud architects and the cloud team were managing all of the systems in the cloud as well as the alerting and monitoring. And now, through the implementation of the Smart Cloud Monitoring, we're able to push that alerting functionality to the 24/7 TSC team and train them on the actions that are required, as well as the steps that are necessary after the customer contact is made so that they can manage it more effectively. And then over the next 2 quarters, the plan is to continue to refine and expand the monitoring parameters that we're using so we can refine more based on what the customers want to see, as well as always ensuring that we have the insight to give the 100% uptime. Some of the challenges we faced were based on the software itself, the Smart Cloud Monitoring systems that were continuing and still continue to evolve. So here's some of those points. It was previously a Java-based client for the customer, but now that's been replaced. The customer portal was very complex initially, but it's been replaced with a much more simplified user interface. There's a self-service capacity now for the customers to define their notifications. So instead of us having to have our cloud team go in and continue to adjust them based on each customer's desires, now they can do it themselves after some initial training. It had a pretty heavy load on our operating system for our corporate side to run it, and that's been slimmed down significantly so it's more efficient. There's still some security challenges on a multi-tenant cloud, which is what we operate, but that's being addressed on the roadmap, and we're confident that's going to be give us exactly what we need. And then the integration into a single pane of glass seamlessly, again, was addressed and helps us be more scalable. So at this point, I want to turn it over to Payal to talk a little bit more about some of the details.
Thanks, Alan. So just to let everybody know all the cool things that Alan talked about, all those capabilities are available in our next generation of IBM monitoring, which has, in fact, significantly improved TCO and time to value. It's lightweight. It's built on a much more scalable and flexible architecture and has very intuitive user experience and new dashboards. So I would encourage everybody to go to ibmserviceengage.com and take a look at our live demos, try our product, and contact us, get in touch with us. We can help you solve your problems and achieve success like what Oxford Networks accomplished. And our beta is running right now for next generation of APM. The monitoring is available already for APM transaction tracking and code level diagnostics. We have a beta running, so if you would like to join our beta to win a free t-shirt and cap, and just go to www.ibmserviceengage.com and you can find out more there. All right, that's all I have. Thanks for joining.
Thank you so much, Payal and Alan. Really appreciate the time. Just as a reminder for everyone, if you have any questions, please use the chat box, and we will address those and get those answered for you. In the meantime, while we're waiting on some questions to come in, I just wanted to remind everyone to visit the TUC website where we will post the recorded webcast from today, and also join the forum discussion. We'll set up a forum so that if there are any questions that come up after today's meeting or anyone that visits the replay, we'll be able to ask and we can get those answered for you. Well, I don't think we have any questions for today. So again, thanks so much for spending the hour with us, and a special thank you to you, Alan and Pael, for offering your time and sharing your knowledge with us. We very much appreciate it. This concludes today's conference. You may now disconnect, and I hope everyone has a wonderful day.
Thank you.